Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is a great idea for a program because it's something that I've wanted to fit into our schedule for quite some time, and happy to be able to do it now. So what we're going to do tonight is basically go over two of our online resources that we have at HSP. One is our Discover Online Catalog, which acts as our online public access catalog that you would find in any other library, as well as how to find our traditional card catalogs, which have been digitized by FamilySearch.org. So my main focus, so just to give you a bit of an outline, I'm going to introduce Discover as a catalog, just show you some of the main things that you'll see when you first log on to the catalog. And then we'll move into some of our, basic search strategies and what basic search means for Discover. And then we'll move on to some more advanced search strategies that can help you actually maximize your searching. And then after that, we'll actually go on to showing you how to access the digitized cards in Family Search. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start you off with seeing the first page that you'll notice on Discover. Let me get there 1 second. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see this. When you log on to our catalog Discover, it's discover.hsp.org. This is the first screen that you're going to see. Okay, and the main thing that I really wanted to point out here is that you're going to come across this box, and what this box illustrates is all the sections that are searchable within Discover. Okay, so you have your published materials, you have the names database, you have the Philadelphia Record Photograph Morgue, our digital records, as well as our archival materials. Okay, and what you can do is say you're heading to HSP, where you're at home trying to prepare some research to come to HSP, and you're like, I'm not really interested in seeing manuscripts. I really just want to explore HSP's published collection. So really what you would do is, if you didn't want to search the entire collection, overwhelm yourself with that, you can actually just click on published materials. And then once you conduct your search, you will really just be searching published material. All right. So there is an exception here, though, and you may or may not come across these records while you're searching in this section of the catalog. But in the past, prior to having the software to catalog our archival materials, we were submitting bibliographic records to the catalog. So sometimes you'll actually come across some collection materials, but you're really not going to find them. I've been trying to weed them out over time. So there's really like a minimal amount of them now. So let me go back. And the same goes for every section of the catalog here. So whichever one you click on is fully searchable. Just to elaborate on some of these, the names database is a part of the catalog that actually extracts names from HSP's exclusive database called Encounters. So Encounters was a database that we created, and it's comprised of multiple collections, and anywhere from, as you can see, the Pennsylvania Revolutionary War Battalions and Militia Index, the Philadelphia Public School records, the Oliver H. Bear Company records, which are funeral records. And then there's also manumission records, and I think Orphan Society records as well. So there's a plethora of collections that are involved in the database. And what this section of Discover acts as is kind of an index to those names found in each of those parts of Encounters. I must highlight, however, that if you click on a record here, it'll give you a little bit of information, but it's also going to lead you to click to the database. The database is actually exclusive to members only from home. However, if you are on site at HSP, you can access Encounters fully from our InfoCommons computer. So if you're not a member, or you want to be a member, you will have access at home, but you can access on site too. Okay. So let me go back. And Philadelphia Record Photograph Morgue. These are basically cataloged as names, pretty much. Mostly you'll see them titled as names. However, you can search subjects in here. For instance, if you're not looking for a name, but you're saying, you know what, I want to see all of our records that pertain to baseball. All right. So when we click that, you're going to find all of the records that really have the subject baseball in them. Okay. So these people are associated with baseball in some capacity. And then that goes for anything else. So it's worth a try to see. It's just an alternate way to search this aspect of the catalog. All right. There we go. And then our digital records. So these are records that are actually linked to our digital library. Our digital library at the moment is kind of on the fritz. Our digital asset management system is kind of off and on. It's been going in and out. So one day it'll be on, one day it'll be off, but it's worth checking out a record. Hopefully it can work for you. If anything, if it's something that really intrigues you, there is a bunch of metadata in the record that will at least tell you which collection it's in. So if you're on site at HSP and you're like, yeah, I need to see this, unfortunately the digital library is not working, we can at least pull the item for you to take a look at. All right, so at least we have information to look at something. Okay, so let me go back. And then of course our archival records are all of our archival collections. So that, you know, there's so many different collections within HSP's overall collection. So, you know, archives, I guess, you know, this collection or this aspect of the catalog is really going to consist of your collections that hold letters and diaries and you name it. So if you're just looking for primary source material, this is the section that you really want to be searching in. All right. But you don't really have to click on one of these at a time. You can actually just start searching from this bar right here, and it'll actually search the entire collection. This is just kind of if you want to hone it in a little bit and just take a look at, you know, certain aspects of the catalog. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to what basic searching means for Discover. And if I'm moving a little too fast, if you have any questions, like Chris said, you know, please submit some questions, and then at the end of the program, I'll answer as many as I can, as best as I can. Okay. So a basic search is actually how it sounds. It's a very basic search, and I usually define it as something as typing in, developing some terms that you have curiosities about for a topic that you're starting research on, or if you're new to a catalog or an institution and you're trying to get a feel for what they have or how much they have on one topic, it's good always to kind of type in some vague terms and, you know, like do a vague search, really, not vague terms, but for instance, say we're just going to use the word cemeteries. Okay. And we're just going to produce that search. And as you can see, we have, you know, 2,706 results just for that one word. But when you're looking at the results list, you're going to see that the catalog actually highlights the term that you put into the search bar. Okay. So what it's doing is you're telling the catalog to produce all the relevant results for the subjects that you're typing in. All right. So say we're just looking, you know, all right, well, cemeteries is a little broad. Say we want to narrow it down a little bit to include a location. So we're going to put in Philadelphia. All right. And then now you can see that it recognized Philadelphia. So now it's finding all the records that have, you know, both Philadelphia and cemeteries or cemetery for that matter. And then when you scroll down, you can see we now only have 39 pages, which was, you know, 761 results from the 2,700 that we had the search before. So it's just a way, kind of basic search in a basic search method of kind of narrowing things down a little bit. All right. And also at the same time, you'll notice that there's these suggested topics up here. Sometimes these are really good to consider because you're going to actually see maybe some relative terms, okay? Things that you can apply to cemeteries, like gravestone inscriptions, cemetery records. So it can give you actually some ideas on how to maybe use other terms for when you're conducting more searches. All right. And then of course, you can directly click these and these will actually give you the records. This is a record counter. So, if you wanted to see gravestone inscriptions from this initial search, there's 28 records and by clicking this, it'll just lead you right to that list. Okay. And then over here, going back to my initial introduction, if you found yourself, all right, well, I got this search and let's limit this a little bit. I just want to take a look at the published material. You can click on that. That'll just pull you right to the published material section. Same with archival materials and then as well as digital records. Now, you'll notice that the other two aren't on here, and that just means that from your search, there were no results in those parts of the catalog. All right. So, and moving down, you can also search by date range, and this is really the year of the publication. It's not really going to pull the date range from any content within the source. It's really going to pull it from this part of the record right here. So, for instance, if you typed in 1844, likely you'll probably get this and maybe a few others if they have that date, but it's really not going to pull it's not going to pull information from any other part of the record besides where the publication date is. All right. This is really good, by the way, for like published material and archival material. All right. So, and then if you're looking for something in a specific collection, you can, peruse this aspect of the sidebar. If there's a specific author who wrote something on the subject, you can peruse this list to see, lead you right to their titles. And then, of course, down here you have the genre. And then format's actually a really good one because, especially for this subject, especially if you're looking for, cemetery records, but like, gravestone inscriptions, burial records, death records, microfilm, you're going to find a lot of that on microfilm, as well as a lot of our county books in our open stacks. These two are pretty crucial for this subject alone, but always take a consideration of all the other ones too, because there could be really some valuable information there. And then of course you can take a look by era, region. Of course, we're in Philadelphia, so this is kind of, relevant here. And then of course, language. We do have a lot of foreign language stuff at HSP. This search didn't produce a lot of it, but we do have a lot of foreign language material in our Balch collection. All right. So that's pretty much, a basic search and discover. It's really not meant to be too involved. It's kind of really to get you an idea of how much we have of a certain thing, kind of just configure yourself in a way to develop new strategies on how to search things, and just give you an overall idea of the catalog itself. So from there, what we should do is I'm going to move on to advanced searching. Well, actually, no, there's one thing I want to mention before we move on here. So when you're searching up here in the bar, you're going to notice this drop down. Okay. So as you can see, I selected all fields. All fields basically means that it's searching all recognizable fields in a record. So recognizable fields would be the title field, the subject headings of a record, any note records, such as like if the cataloger put in a summary. So you might see some terms pop up in there. And pretty much any recognizable record, field like that is going to be is going to find the terms within all of those fields. However, if you're looking, hey, I know the title of a book. Let me just type that in. Let me see. I'm going to do one off the top of my head. All right, so this is Tom Paine and Revolutionary America by Eric Foner. Really good book, by the way, if you haven't read it. So yeah, I already knew the name of the book. If there's a certain book that you're looking for to see if we have it, it's always just good to go by title, and it'll just lead you right there. The thing is, the only problem with just searching by title sometimes is that it doesn't, unlike, search engines like Google or what have you, they're not going to correct you based on misspellings. So for instance, if I was to spell Thomas Paine's last name wrong by accident, and I just typed it in like that, well, it's not going to really return anything. And for some reason, it's putting me here. So if it's throwing you at the Philadelphia Record Photo Morgue, it's an error. That you're not going to find anything in here related to that book. I promise you that. So it's not going to correct you. It's not going to make any suggestions. This is what you meant type message. So if you enter it, this goes for any search really. So if you enter a search, you enter terms, and you're like, I'm not really producing anything. This is kind of odd. HSP should have this stuff. Just go back and take a look at your search string and see, oh, you know what? I forgot a letter here. If you're like me and I type insanely fast, I do that often. I have to go back and edit my searches. So yeah, it's always just good to double check just to make sure, before you get discouraged that we don't have it. Okay. All right, so let's move on to some advanced searching. I'm just going to go back to the home page here. And if you're familiar with using an OPAC like this or any other database like EBSCOhost or ProQuest, Web of Science, any of those databases, you're going to really notice that a lot of them have an advanced search option. And what that it's meant to do is to allow you to add more terms and really figure out a way to maximize your overall search in a catalog or database. All right. And a lot of this is usually used by way of Boolean operators. If you're familiar with Boolean operators, they're basically just terms that are used to combine words to make sure that you're producing a good list of results or a nice refined list of results. So let's go to the advanced search option. All right, I'm going to take away that third row there. All right, so there's two ways to advanced search in Discover. You can actually use this feature, or if you're familiar with actually using Boolean operators, I'm actually going to demonstrate them as well. If you're not, you can actually type them straight into the search bar. But we'll go over this section first, and then I'll move on to that strategy. All right. So let's use the word cemeteries again. All right. Let's take that, and then we're actually going to consider. You know what? When I first used the basic search, I didn't really find a lot. Just searching by cemeteries. So let me think of a word that is a variation of cemeteries that might be used for some of the records that are in Discover. So let's go with graveyards. All right. All right. So we have varying terms here now. And what we want to do is we want to search for records that have both of these terms. Okay. So maybe before when we typed in cemeteries, it was just finding records that just had cemeteries in it. If you didn't examine those records heavily to see all the subject terms within it, it was probably only highlighting definitely just cemetery or cemeteries. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that we're pulling, records that also have graveyards in it. However, we got to look at this over here. This is the match. So this is a little tricky. It's a little different than some of your traditional advanced search interfaces. We use some different terminology here. So we have all terms, any terms, and no terms. Okay. All terms is going to be equivalent to the AND operator. So if I didn't already mention this, I'll say it now. With Boolean logic, there are three main operators that are used, and that's and, or, and not, okay? The all terms acts as the and operator, all right? The any terms acts as the or operator, and the no terms acts as the not operator, okay? So what we're going to do by selecting all terms here is we're actually only going to produce records that have both terms, graveyards and cemeteries in it. All right. So let's take a search here. Okay. And as you can see, there's 164 results. It's really not much. And I think that's maybe 9 pages. If I remember the counter right. Yeah, so 9 pages. All right. So at first you're like, okay, well, that's really not, maybe that's a little too refined. That's really not a lot at all. So, all right, well, let's give it another shot. So we're going to go back. And like, how about now we want to take a look at, all right, well, we tried it this way. And the only records that we pulled up doing this were just records that had both cemeteries and graveyards in it, okay? So now what we want to do is we want to search for records that have both cemeteries and graveyards in it, as well as records that just have cemeteries and records that just have graveyards. So all you really have to do with that is just assign the any terms operator, which acts as the or operator again. And then when we hit find, you're going to see that the result counter increased by a lot. All right. And then as you can scroll through, you're going to notice that it's picking up both terms, right? And then if we scroll down, I'm just going to skip a few pages over just to show you an example of it picking up one of the terms. Well, let's go to page 3 and we'll scroll down a bit. So now here you go. You have some records that are just picking up graveyards, okay? And then of course, as you scroll on, you're probably going to find more that have just cemeteries, but at least you're maximizing your search in a way where you're like, okay, well, I only had 164 in the one. Now I have a lot. I have a lot to work with. So then you can decide whether these sidebar limiters are something you want to entertain, or you can go back to the drawing board and you can actually add some more terms in there to make it more refined. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back. And we're going to go cemeteries, graveyards. All right, I'm going to delete this guy. And then we're going to go back to any terms because we know we got a lot of results with that the first time. All right, so say we want to add a location now. We're like, okay, well, graveyards, cemeteries, we got a lot of stuff there. Now we want to limit it to, I need to just search for these things in Philadelphia. All right. Now, what you do not want to do is just add another search field and type in Philadelphia, because what's going to happen is you're going to get the records for graveyards, cemeteries and graveyards, and also just Philadelphia. So you're going to find records that just have the name Philadelphia in it, and it's going to be a large amount of stuff, and it's going to be very overwhelming. So what you want to do is you do not want to put your location in with these two terms. You want to group them by themselves. So all you have to do is just add a search group. Okay. And what you're going to do here is just type in Philadelphia. Oh, I already had it in there, so let's do that. Okay. So you have this still at any terms, but you want to leave this at all terms because you want all of the records to include the word Philadelphia. Okay. But you still want to retain this logic here of the records having both cemeteries and graveyards, and then the records that just have graveyards and the records that just have cemeteries. Okay. And I hope when I go over the other method of doing this, some of this will make more sense. But again, ask questions if you need me to go over it again. All right. So when we separate this, okay, there's going to be an invisible and operator here. Okay, so by creating an additional search group, you're actually creating an invisible and operator. All right. So this, like I said, is grouped together. And in typing out Boolean logic, this would technically be in parentheses because you're separating it. This has to always be constant to mean what this is, okay? So you have to leave those in parentheses, but you're going to have this guy outside, and he's not going to be in parentheses. He's going to be by himself, all right? But there's an invisible and there to combine the two together. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to conduct a search here. And then you're going to see that it's picking up now Philadelphia graveyards and cemeteries. Okay. And we have 803 hits on that. And as you can scroll through, you can see where they're all highlighted from different aspects of the record. So as you can see here, right, just to use this one as an example, I highlighted it in the title, but it also picked it up from the subject. So these are in the actual subject headings of the record. All right. So we're going to do one step further. We're going to do one step further. And we're going to add, perhaps you're like, all right, well, I went over the search list that has all of the records, including Philadelphia, but I really didn't want to, I'm kind of over that now. I want to move on to just searching general Pennsylvania. I know this is very broad, but this is just a good example for how this works. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a search group like we did before, and we're going to type in Pennsylvania. All right. But we want to exclude Philadelphia because we already looked at them. All right. So we don't want to produce any more records that have Philadelphia in them because they're irrelevant to me at this point. So what we're going to have to do is keep that at all terms because we want the records we produce to have Pennsylvania in it. But we're going to create another search group and we're going to type in Philadelphia. But this time we're going to choose no terms. Okay. So now by doing this, we're going to exclude all the records that mention Philadelphia in them. All right. So we're going to conduct the search. Okay. So now you can see that these are just for areas in Pennsylvania. All right. And I think that was, 2150. So it's a lot from 800. And I think that other search was 41 pages and now we're at 108. So yeah, of course it was gonna increase because, we're kind of just using Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania is huge. So it's grabbing records from all over the state, except for Philadelphia. All right. All right, so let's move on to actually doing advanced searching by actually typing in our search strings. Okay, so we can always go back to the beginning here. All right, I'm going to use the same examples. So this way we're just a little consistent on how this works. So we're going to start from the beginning and we're going to use the AND operator first. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in cemeteries and graveyards. Okay. As you can see, I capitalized and. For our catalog, it's not required to capitalize and, but it's really good practice because, like I said, this should be transferable knowledge for you. And you can take this to any modern database, any modern online catalog, and they should have the capability for you to search with these operators. But not all of them give you the liberty to capitalize and not capitalize. Ours doesn't matter. You can do it any way you want, but it's just good practice to get into getting in a habit of just capitalizing it because some catalogs actually require you to do it. All right. So, okay, we got cemeteries and graveyards. So we're going to conduct the search. All right. And then we're back at our 164 results. Okay. And we're like, all right, well, it's just not enough. It's just not enough. So we're just going to have to go on and we're just going to have to change some things up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the and out of there, and we're going to put or. All right. So then from there, we're going to hit find. Oh, let me make sure that's not too spaced out here. And there we go. We're back at 2,979 results. Okay. And then, we're like, all right, well, we need to add a location. So now what I was talking about before, you need to separate these terms from the location. Okay. Because we want the breadth of and the depth of this type of search, but we also want to add a location. Okay. To narrow it down a little bit. Could be a lot of it, depending on what type of location you put in there too. But let me put some cemeteries there. Parentheses. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why it's freezing on me. And then we're just going to type in Philadelphia. And we got our terms over here. Sorry, you can't see this to the side, but if you drag it over, you should be able to see it. Okay. So we're going to conduct our search here. And then as you can see, we're back at our 803 results with records that include the word Philadelphia in it now. Okay. And now I want to show you what a search string is going to look like when we exclude the city of Philadelphia, but then leave the rest of it. Okay. So we can all you really have to do is just go to the beginning here, type in Pennsylvania. And now what you're going to do is type in the word not. So now our string reads Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia, and cemeteries or graveyards. Okay. Believe it or not, this right here is only telling you what to exclude between these two terms. I know that might seem confusing. I remember when I was first using these, I was like, none of this makes sense. It kind of reminds me of an algebraic equation of sorts, which in some ways it is. But it just didn't make sense to me at first. But then once you start using it and you really start seeing what types of results you're producing, it just makes sense over time. So we're gonna do this. Take a search here. And then now you can see we're back at that 2150. And it's just pulling the records that have, the rest of Pennsylvania. All right. So, advanced searching is something that I stress a lot because I've had questions over time where, I might have mentioned briefly before that, patrons were becoming frustrated because they might have been hitting a wall. They're just like, I'm searching this catalog and I just cannot find anything related to this topic. So then, I'll ask them a series of questions about, how they're going about their search. And then if I notice that there really wasn't much advanced search technique going on there, I'll kind of introduce it to them and I'll just walk them through the process. And then, believe it or not, sometimes that wall will just come down and they'll actually find stuff. There's no guarantee. All right. That's the number one thing I want to stress. There's no guarantee that by using advanced search techniques that you're going to find exactly what you need. It's not meant for that. It's meant to just give you the opportunity to maximize the potential of what your results could be. So I always stress that it's never a guarantee, but it's a way to vary your technique. It's a way to vary your skill set in doing research. Okay. And another good thing about this catalog is that you have the ability to look at your search history. Okay. What I usually I usually stress that, when you're getting into this stuff, sometimes it's good to prepare before you come to the library. Or if you're at your house or what have you, but I always had people write them down. it takes some practice to get used to these operators and this advanced search technology or technique. And sometimes by writing them out, it makes a little more sense. And then what you'll do is, from your list, you can start typing them in. And if they don't work, you just alter it. Go back to your list and be like, you know what, maybe that didn't make sense. I should probably just do it this way. And then just try it again and it might be better. So sometimes writing them out until you're really used to doing this, it seems like a lot of work. At first, when I was introduced to Boolean operators, I was just like, this just seems like an insane amount of work. People actually sit here and do this all day. Like, this is just nuts. But actually, once you really start doing a lot of research in databases and catalogs, it really becomes kind of second nature to that process. And you'll understand, that it's a crucial part of doing research in these types of environments. All right. Okay. So if I moved a little quick on that stuff, I apologize. I try to give you some of the more simplistic examples. These search strings can get really long. They can get insanely long to the point where they're just confusing when you look at them. But, sometimes I usually say if you have a list of topics within an overarching, subject that you're working on, kind of break it into sections. So say you're looking at cemeteries and graveyards for part of it, and then you want to look at birth records and marriages. Okay, well, don't put them all in one search string, because what's going to happen is you're going to produce a crazy list of results, or barely any results, because all of those records might not have all of those terms. So it's always good to separate those subjects and just make sure you're grouping things so you're not confusing yourself and all of that. So, okay. But yeah, if you have any questions on any of what I just went over, submit a question. I will do my best to answer all of it. All right. So the next thing I want to go over is our traditional card catalog. So if you haven't visited HSP, we actually have part of our traditional card catalog still in our info commons. And what's in there is mainly manuscripts, records for cards for manuscripts, letters, diaries, what have you. There are cards there for genealogy, family history. So they're cards with names on them, and they lead you to family collections. We also have part of the catalog is for broadsides, which, if you're not familiar with broadsides, those are large sheets of paper printed on one single side, mostly in the form of like advertisements or some kind of poster. Really cool. Some of them are really neat, especially the ones from like the Civil War. Really cool ones that I've come across in the collection. Another part of the catalog is the graphics catalog. That's broken into 4 sections. You have one section that includes images, portraits, prints, photographs, watercolors, drawings, and more. Then you have coats of arms from families. And then you have insurance surveys, which are mostly fire insurance surveys. Really good resource, by the way, if you're doing property history. And then you also have maps, atlases, and other cartographic material. So you might be thinking, if you're not familiar with this already, you might be thinking, how can you access that online? Well, Family Search, we had partnered with them, and they sent volunteers to HSP, and they had digitized all of our cards in those catalogs. So now you don't even have to be in HSP anymore. So you could use you could use the cards in conjunction with Discover now. So say you're finished with Discover, you're like, I need to go look at some traditional cards in a good old-fashioned card catalog. So what you're going to do is, if you do not have a Family Search account, you're going to have to create one. It's entirely free. They won't ask you to enter any kind of credit card information or anything like that. It's entirely free, and you essentially have a free account with them. And you can actually search a lot with the free account. I found a ton of material just by searching, the level that I had access to from my house. And then Family Search basically tells you, if you need to get more information or you need to see some images that are not available at your account level, you have to go to a family research center. And there's various ones around the country. All right, so to get back on track here, what I want to really show you is how to find our catalog in Family Search. So by looking at it, it's going to be like, how on earth can I find this thing? I have no idea where it is. So what you have to do, excuse me, is you're going to want to go to search. Okay. Once you're logged in, once you create your account and you log in, this is the main page that you're going to see initially. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. So you're going to go to search and you want to go to records. All right. And then what Family Search did is they considered our catalog a collection. So all you have to do is just start typing in Historical Society of Pennsylvania. All right. And as you're typing it, you'll see it pop up here. So you can just click on that. And then you're going to arrive at the collection. Okay. They give you actually a wiki on how to use it. And then we'll show you some sample cards in the wiki. It's some useful information if you kind of get confused on what you're looking at when you get to a card. But I will tell you this, all the cards are different. It depends on who cataloged them at the time. And that's years and years and years of cataloging there. So penmanship varies. Some of them are printed, but not all of them. But I'm going to show you a group of them. So basically what you want to do to get to the actual various catalogs that I had mentioned briefly before, you're going to click on Browse. Oh, I guess it timed out. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, so usually when you click Browse, this window will pop up. All right, and these are all the separate catalogs that you're going to see. So you have your Afro-Americana broadsides, Afro-Americana manuscripts and prints, and as well as some of the other ones I touched on before. So yeah, we also, I don't think I mentioned there's newspapers. There's also music too, which has like a lot of musical scores and a lot of documents related to like different kinds of music, opera, jazz, so on and so forth. All right. So you just need to figure out where you need to be in this catalog. Okay. So if you're looking for family history, you're going to want to look on, you're going to want to look in this catalog. Okay. You're going to click on that. You're going to find the range of the name you need to find, and then you're going to start searching. But I'm actually going to use manuscripts as the example here. And then, after I get through this one, I'll look at another one here just to give you an example of another kind of card. All right. So we're going to click on manuscripts because say I'm trying to look for, I want to look for a letter that James Logan had written to John Penn in 1725. Okay. I think, yes, 1725. So what you're going to see here is that James Logan has 3 of his own drawers. There's just a lot of material that we have. There's a lot of correspondence between him and a lot of prominent people. And there's so much so that he has 3 of his own drawers. So, well, what one do I click on? I know the date of the letter that I need to see, but I'm not sure, which one to click on here. Well, first thing, good rule of thumb is probably click on the first one. The only downside to this, okay, is that there's no search bar. You cannot just type in James Logan 1725 or 1727 is probably the actual letter I'm trying to look for, sorry. But anyway, you can't type in James Logan 1727 and then the card just pop up. You have to really use this number counter here. And a good rule of thumb is if you do have a date, is to kind of look at what the first one is of the lot. And then, so this is going to be the first card of the drawer. And then you just want to take a look at what the last card says. So we're going to go to 1070. There we go. All right, so this is 1717, right? 17, 17, 18. All right, well, we're at the end of this drawer and we're still not where I need to be. So what you want to do is you want to go back and you want to select the second drawer. Okay. So then we can take a look at this and we're like, all right, well, this is kind of a date range. Let's take a look at that second page here. All right, so we're still there. Let's actually go to the end. So let's go to 1029, enter. All right, 1727, that's great. We're on the right track here, but there's no date next to it. No month or day. So what's a good idea is to kind of scroll back. And now we can see we're at December 22nd. So I want to be at November 25th. Sometimes you can press your luck by just scrolling back, but if you really start to realize that you're not getting it very quickly, good thing is to just skip back a little bit or ahead if that applies. And then now it looks like we're at November. So I'm going to go back one. All right, we're at November 30th, so close. And then let me just cruise back here a little bit. 28th, 25th. All right, close. John Penn, there he is. All right, so this is the letter that I'm looking for. All right. So James Logan to John Penn. It's in the Logan letter books, volume 4, page 150, and also on page 167. What you want to do is once you find the card that you're looking for, you want to make sure when you're filling out your call slip to send to the restricted desk to access this, is that you include all of this information. And the reason I say that is because a lot of these collections over the years have been broken up, they've been reorganized, they've been renamed different things, they've been assigned new collection numbers. So some of if there is a collection number, sometimes it might be old. And, we just have to do a little, at the desk, we have to do a little bit of research and maybe sometimes find it. The Logan collection's pretty heavily used, so more often than not, we can probably just look at this card and know where it's at. But there are some other collections that on cards that we find, and like, I've never heard of that. It doesn't come up in our database anymore, so we really have to hunt around for it to find it. But if you give us all the information that's on the card, at least, we can usually narrow it down, and we'll eventually find the letter or whatever the document or volume or what have you is. Okay, and then generally on a card like this, the collection name is going to be usually on the bottom. All right, collection name's usually on the bottom, and then sometimes you're going to have it up on the side here. Okay, and then you might see a volume number, you might not. Okay, sometimes if the collection has a finding aid, we're just going to have to refer to the finding aid to figure it out. But I just wanted to give you a basic idea of what the characteristics of the cards usually look like, and where to really recognize what's what on it. Okay, and I actually want to go back to the main part of the catalog because I want to show you another type of card. So we're going to go to family history, and just to mention, because I might have forgotten in the other section, these are all in alphabetical order. Okay, and as you can see, it's an alphabetical range. So if you're looking for a family, let's just get generic here. Is the last name Smith? Okay, you're just gonna go to the part of the catalog or the drawer that has, you know, that surname. It might fall in between. Like this is probably the drawer that has Smith, but so it'll fall in between these two names here. But you're probably going to have to scroll through. So we're probably going to have to go. Sometimes it's good to make a good jump. Let's go 500. Wow, look at that. All right, so that led me to the Smith family. That was a total guess too. I didn't even practice that one. So this is a Smith family notes. All right, this is a good card actually. So what you're going to want to do, like I said before, you're going to want to actually just, you know, transcribe all of this information onto your call slip. This right here is actually your call number. So this is not actually a collection now. These are actually genealogical folders that we have. They might appear as books if you find them in Discover. Some of these are in Discover, not all of them, but some of them are. But FCs are actually folders. But this is the call number that you're going to use. So generally with a lot of these, you're either going to have a collection name down here, perhaps a volume, folder number, page even. And then for more, for some of the different things like published materials and so on and so forth, you're going to have a call number. So FCSM is going to be the call number. And then what we'll do is we'll go into the stacks and we'll find the right folder and bring it out to you. All right. So that's pretty much how you get into this catalog. There is a guide to this, and Chris might have shared it into the chat. If not, we can put that in. We did create a guide to how to go over what I just showed you. Sometimes it's just, you know, I wanted to show you tonight because sometimes it's just easier to do it as a visual. Reading a guide is great and all, but sometimes until you see it, somebody demonstrate it, it's, you know, sometimes it makes a little more sense. But in any case, we have a guide for that. And I also have a guide for how to search Discover. Provide some of the basic search examples as well as the advanced search examples that I went over before. Okay. And that's it, guys. I think we're almost exactly at an hour. But I do want to stress that we do have, if you have any questions, if I don't get to all your questions tonight, you can contact me. I will put my email address up on a Word document in a moment and share the screen. But you can also contact us through our website. If I can get to. Okay. We have a new feature at HSP. If you haven't used it yet, we have a chat feature. So you can chat with a librarian live 2 days a week between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. I'm one of the librarians as well as 2 other of my colleagues. So there's always going to be somebody there between that time frame on both of those days. Okay, so you can chat with somebody live then, or if you click on this after hours or any other day during the week, we do have some FAQs here. And if the FAQs don't answer your question, if you scroll to the bottom, you can actually submit a ticket. And what we'll do is we'll answer them in order and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right. All right, Chris, I think that's all I got, man.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. That's a lot of good information in there, and we have quite a bit of quite a number of questions. One of them is a content question. You know, she wanted to, Diane, one of our viewers, she says, I'm delighted to hear your talk. You mentioned manumissions. Are there also registrations of enslaved people just before slavery was outlawed in the collection?
There very well might be in the Pennsylvania Abolition Society collection. And that's something you can actually, let's go into Discover real quick. I know that collection had a finding aid. And I'm glad you asked that question, because that was one thing I wanted to touch on. I wonder if the finding aid's not up here. Yeah, for some reason, I'm not finding it. I see the main. Maybe it's just too large for us to host it on here, but we do have a finding aid over that for that collection, and it really details the contents that's within it. You can also actually visit this record, and it'll give you a pretty detailed summary of what you're going to find in that collection. So right here, you're going to see, manumissions, indentures, other legal papers. It's going to give you a summary of what we have in it. It's just not an organized inventory. But we do have a finding aid for this collection in-house. I hope that answered your question somewhat. I'm sorry if it was a little bit underwhelming.
Sorry about that. I was muted. No, yeah, I think that is something, and as you mentioned, the finding aid's probably at the once we have the library reopened, you can come in and take a look at that, and then you may have to go through and sort through those manumissions. There may not be an index of them, or there may be, but
yeah, I mean, it's a rather large collection. So I mean, sometimes with finding aids for larger collections, it's hard to host them on. Sometimes the files are just too big; they just don't have them on there. But we also have those records on microfilm too. But you probably want to see the real thing if we have
it. A few people were asking, I just, just to clarify, a few people were asking, the pulling up a record in Discover is not going to bring up the actual document. And is there a way, to see anything that without being at HSP?
The only way you'll see some things without being at HSP is if it's in the digital library. And the things that are in the digital library are really only items that we had scanned. We never had a large digitization project at HSP where we focused on like one or several collections and just had an effort to digitize them all. It's just that, we have over 21 million items in the collection, and it's probably going to be beyond multiple lifetimes before that would even be able to be digitized. But it's our hope in the future to actually have some really focused projects into really getting some of these heavily used collections digitized. PAS, the Pennsylvania Abolition Society, just like I mentioned, the Campbell collection, a lot of these bigger collections like the Cadwalader collection, like a lot of those heavily used collections that that are used at HSP on a daily basis are probably going to be really helpful if we get them digitized at some point. It's just that, having the resources, the time, the money, of course, we're actually just going to work on that, really starting to discuss that a little more now since we've been back to work. And hopefully in the future we can get that done. But yeah, like I said, unfortunately, when you pull up a record, it's really only a record with metadata just saying that we have this material at HSP, but you're not going to be able to see an image of it all the time.
And we had a number of questions on, I think it might be helpful to kind of walk through the Boolean operators again.
Okay.
Someone had mentioned, maybe talk through a little bit about the and, or, and not with the different search groups. I think would be helpful for a few of the folks.
So we want to go back to the traditional.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So basically, what you want to do here is you're going to want to. So I always use advanced searching when I know that I have varying terms or terms that I want to combine. So you don't have to, like, I use the example with varying terms, but you don't have to do that. All right. So say you just want to do cemeteries. Okay. And then you just want to add a location, Philadelphia. Right. So you can leave this now at all terms because you want to search all of the records that have the word cemeteries in it. But you also want to search all of the records that have Philadelphia associated with cemeteries. And like I was saying before, when you create separate search groups, there's going to be this invisible and here. So these are basically combining together with an invisible and operator. All right. Sometimes I feel like it's this, I like this feature, but sometimes it's better. I feel, I mean, for me, I'm always more comfortable typing them out than using these types of interfaces, but it's really all what makes sense to you. It's like learning two different ways to do math. It really is. And it's just whatever makes sense to you the most, go with it. If it works, it works. But yeah, so say we're just going to do something a little more simple. We just want to see cemeteries in Philadelphia, okay? And we're just going to click find. And then these are the results that we get out of it. So we got 761 results out of that search. Okay. So if we go back, all right, I just wanted to start with something a little more simple, and now we can do varying terms again. So now we want to do varying terms. We're going to do graveyards. Okay. So now what we can do is if we want to maximize our search, because the last time we did this, we know we only got 9 pages, and that really wasn't a lot. Unless, of course, you found what you wanted in those 9 pages. That's all. That's great. But if it seems like it's just too little, you really need to expand it a little bit. So now we want to make sure we get 3 sets of records. So we're going to get records that have both terms in it, cemeteries and graveyards, and we're going to get records that just have graveyards and records that just have cemeteries. Okay, so they're all going to come in the list. And that's really only by selecting the any terms operator. So if you want to make a key for yourself, I would recommend taking a look at this, copying these down and translating it as and operator, or operator, not operator. Okay, that's a good way to do it. For some reason, we chose to do these terms, and it's a little confusing, but they do mean the same thing. They do mean the same thing at the end of the day. So for this, now we have these varying terms, and we want to maximize that search. We're going to click any because we want or. Okay, so then we're going to hit find, and then we're going to see that our search result list went up quite a bit. All right, we're now 2,979 again. All right. And then, of course, I'm going to go back over what I did before. Let's add a location. Okay. So here, like I said, you don't want to add the location in here because what you're going to do is now you're going to have Philadelphia general records. So you might pull up something that just says, Philadelphia Phillies, that's not related to cemeteries and graveyards. You don't want that information. And it's just you're gonna have tons of results. I mean, I'll do it just for kicks so I can tell you or show you how it's gonna look. See, now we got
4,000.
We got 4,154
Sure.
pages. Now, the reason why you're seeing these come up first is because this is sorted by relevance. So the catalog saying, we know what you mean. It's just that we're going to throw all this other stuff in there too. So, when you start to switch it up a little bit, now you're getting things like, National Historic Landmark to become Guild House Boutique Hotel. And that's just something that's in Philadelphia. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily, and it doesn't have to do with cemeteries at all.
Right. Right.
So that's why you don't want to group this all together like that, because you'll get kind of an annoying list of results there. So you want to get rid of that. And then you want to group these together by themselves, like how I did in the parentheses in the search string. And then you just want to add a separate group for Philadelphia. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you want to leave that at Annie, because you want to maximize the results for these two terms, but you want to combine it with that invisible and operator here.
So you're essentially searching for cemeteries or graveyards and Philadelphia.
Yep.
If you were to type that string out, right? Okay.
Yep. I mean, if you were typing the string out, I mean, I did it in this order, but if you were typing the string out, it would probably say Philadelphia and parentheses, cemeteries or graveyards.
Right.
You know, because what the catalog is essentially doing is it's looking for these terms first, and then it's applying it to Philadelphia.
Okay.
That makes sense. So I guess what? That's algebra, right? Where it would do everything in the parentheses first, and then
Right.
So it really, that's how it works.
Okay.
Really how it works. So then you would hit find. And then you're going to get your records that have Philadelphia, graveyards, and cemeteries. And it knocks it down to 803. You know?
Great.
All right.
Yeah.
And if you want me to, I mean, I can do the not again. We can do, I'll just do it real quick. Okay?
Sure.
You're going to want to create search group. Now we want to see everything in Pennsylvania, but not Philadelphia. Okay. So we're going to leave that at any terms. We're going to make sure that we want records that say Pennsylvania, but now we're going to exclude Philadelphia out of it. So now we're going to hit no. So basically what this is doing is Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia, and cemeteries and graveyards. Okay. You can actually do this in any order you want. As long as all of this is where it should be, you can put this in any order that you choose. Whatever order makes sense to you, by all means, that's the way you want to do it. But as long as all of this is selected correctly, you should have no problem conducting a search like that. All right. So now we're up to 2,150 records, everything excluding Philadelphia.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that you need me to go over this at some point, you have any questions after this, Chris is, I believe, recording this, so you can always go back and review it. And if you have any questions, and you want to email me or send us a chat or submit a ticket, you're more than welcome to do that. I have no problem answering those questions at all.
Great. No, thank
you. Like if there's a specific item you're looking for in the collection, you're just not sure how to search it, or you have certain terms or something like that, I have no problem helping you out. So
yeah, somebody does have a somewhat, I guess somewhat related, I guess. What's the best way to search for a name? Either using the Boolean operators or just on its own, or should they? So the example they gave is John Smith. Should they search Smith, comma John, in quotes Smith, comma John? What's the best way to do that?
So I'm glad you brought up the in quotes thing, because that's actually something that I wish I put down on here. That's just another way. I didn't want to get too crazy with this, because I know Boolean operators are confusing in themselves for new users, and I just didn't want to bog everybody down with a ton of information. But anyway, while you mentioned it, I'm actually going to demonstrate that. But anyway, to get to your point, searching a name, I would probably always go with the first name, the last name first, and then comma first name. That seems to be the best way to actually search a name in this catalog. You could do it by just typing in John Smith, and it's going to pick it up. But I've always had more success just typing in it that way. You know what I mean? And then, we'll just conduct a search here. And you're going to have a bunch of different things. So then you're probably going to have to limit it a little bit. So now you can see that all of the record sources are up now because of the name.
Right.
So you can search within the record morgue, digital records, the names database, archival materials, published materials. So you can search for all of that. And the published materials is probably going to pick up some author names. You know, a lot of the time when you're searching the name in there, it's usually going to pick up the author somewhere around there. But in the names database in general, if you go there, you're going to see all these John Smiths in various collections. So, I mean, it's pretty generic name, so you're probably going to find a lot of that in our catalog. But I want to touch on that quotations thing for a minute, because what quotations do, if you use them in any other database, they basically just define. So if there's like a certain spelling, or I don't know, you're just like, you know what, I just need to be specific here. Let me see if this works. This is an alternate spelling to the word color, okay? Because if I type this in the American English spelling, it's probably not going to give me this. So the good thing is, to use quotations, it's actually going to give you all the results that have this spelling of it. It's basically you're telling the catalog, I only want this spelling. I don't want any other variation. So you can do that in a basic search. It's not a problem. You can do it in an advanced search if you want. But I think what happens is it gets a little confusing when you have a huge search string going on. It's not quite necessary to do it then. But if you're kind of doing some basic searching and you just want to see everything that has this spelling, or there's like a unique term, you know, that you have, and it's just like, you know, I just want to narrow everything down right away. Let's do it. Boom. Everything that has that spelling. So quotations are a good one. Definitely useful. And I think, yeah, most other databases and catalogs use that too. So that's some more, you know, transferable knowledge. I'm glad you asked that.
Great. Another person, a few people actually said, please explain the elements of a record.
Okay. Elements of a record. All right, we're getting into some cataloging here. All right, let's go to a book. I would go to archival materials, but our archivist, Carrie, would probably be more of the person to explain that stuff for you. I can actually just identify some metadata in those, but she's more versed in explaining some of that stuff. But let me find a good book. Let me go back to that Eric Foner book, Tom Paine and the what was it? Tom Paine and Revolutionary America. Okay. All right. So what you see here is the display view of a record. Okay. When we're cataloging, we don't see any of this. When I create a record, basically we use this software called OCLC. And then what I do is I either find a record that already exists, or I create one if it doesn't already exist. So there's a difference between, you know, now we have copy cataloging versus, you know, original cataloging. And some of our more rare books is where original cataloging comes in, because there's not many records there. But in any case, this is a display view because it's in Discover. All right. However, you do have the liberty, everybody has access to it. You can take a look at staff view. And this is actually what MARC data looks like. So from a MARC record, this is what's behind the scenes. Okay. I use this a lot because it tells me a lot of information. What it's going to do is it's going to tell me what the subject headings. First of all, it's going to tell me the location. It's going to tell me what the call number is that we put in. You're going to see the subject headings, which are crucial to findability of a record. If you find a record and it has no subject headings, you only found it because something in the title or maybe a summary had those terms in it. Really, as a cataloger, what you want to do is you really want to focus on making sure this is in order. because what these subject headings do is they might seem simplistic, but there's a hierarchy to them, or they're very embedded, I should say. And what I mean by that is in cataloging rules and with the Library of Congress, they have what they call controlled vocabulary, if you will. That's probably the best term. I can probably explain it. But it basically, they establish one term to mean a bunch of other varied terms. So you can actually probably type in something like, civil conditions, but there's really not going to be a subject heading for civil conditions. So we put in social conditions because that's the correct subject heading. However, if you search civil conditions, even if this is labeled as social conditions, it's still going to come up because it's an embedded subject heading. So those other varied terms are embedded in that single term. It's pretty interesting. It's fascinating, really. So these are very crucial to the findability of a record. And I really spend time to make sure that when I'm cataloging, that these have a lot of attention, especially if I find a copied record. I didn't create it, so I have to go and make sure that it's really defining the book. It's really about the aboutness of the piece that we're looking at. Okay, we need to make sure that all of these subject headings capture the aboutness of the title, and that really increases the level of findability once I put it into the catalog. All right. So then what we would have up here is an authority name. So the book is about Tom Paine. So, we would actually include this in here because if you were searching for Thomas Paine, we want to make sure that, anything, this record's going to come up when you're searching for him. Even though his name is titled Tom Paine, a lot of people know him as Thomas Paine. So we want to make sure that, this book is going to come up when you search for Thomas Paine. Okay. And then, of course, you have, this basically is just a notes field. This is standard practice, just saying that, this book does have bibliographic references and also an index. It's helpful for some people because, indexes are crucial for research. So it's good to know. And then also, this is just a description, how many pages the book has, whether it has illustrations. Sometimes this will be a little more elaborate. It'll say illustrations, photographs, plates, things of that nature. And then, of course, the size of the book. It's a good indicator, especially if you're worried about how much space you have. I don't know. I've done that before where we have some books that are just like, folios and they're huge. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to have to wait on that one. I can't pull that out right now. I don't have the space. But then you have the publisher information and then, of course, your title. And then you got your author. These are actually two different call numbers. Okay, so you have Library of Congress call number, and then you also have Dewey Decimal. Primarily at HSP, we use Library of Congress, although we do have some call numbers in our family history room that are kind of like a hybrid of Dewey Decimal and also Library of Congress call numbers. But the majority of our printed material is going to be in a Library of Congress format. However, this is a good record because this is clearly an older one because I can tell by the standard here. If you look at the call number here, this is actually an old call number system that HSP developed. When I don't know, and it was probably sometime, I want to say maybe turn of the 20th century. Call number systems were kind of developed in the late 1800s, 1870s, 1890s. So HSP, a lot of research libraries like HSP at the time were actually creating their own because it just pertained to their collection at the time and whatever made sense for them. So we still have a chunk of material at HSP that still uses this call number. And to us, it really just tells us that it just lives at some part in the building, a certain part in the building. So when we look at this, I can tell you that this lives in the basement. That's about it. But that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the anatomy of a MARC record. And then all of this stuff up here is basically this all deals with display characteristics. It looks like just a bunch of numbers and stuff, but then you have like the ISBN of the book and so on and so forth. So, all right.
Great.
I hope that answered your question. Might have been a little more information than you wanted, but
No, great. Thank you. A couple other questions. One, a couple people had asked, can you just repeat when the chat is available?
Oh, sure. So the chat's going to be available Wednesdays and Thursdays between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m.
Great. And another person said, what is the purpose of the QR code in your catalog? What basically what does that do?
So this was a feature that was added into the catalog. I wasn't the developer of this, but this was a feature that was added because at the time, QR codes were becoming kind of a popular thing to use. And I guess the function of it was essentially to give you the option to, I think, save the record if you wanted to refer to it later on. But not all of the records have them.
I see.
And it was just kind of a feature that, our former CIO had added. But they really don't serve a major purchase. They don't save a major purpose, and I wouldn't worry about them.
Great.
That's about it.
No,
you're not missing anything. You're not missing anything.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. I think I think we're getting to the end here, and I think we've answered pretty much almost all the questions.
Okay.
One of the things, because we did have a couple questions about how to access collections from home, and I know you had mentioned this before, that unfortunately the digital library is really the only way to see an item when you're not at HSP, and again, unfortunately, we're not open yet. I mean, there is an option. I'll just mention that if people would like to get some research done, we do have a in addition to the chat and asking librarians questions, we do have a research service where some staff is in the building on limited time, where you could you can essentially take advantage of that through our research by mail service and have somebody do some research in the collection for you. And so I just wanted to make sure to mention that, because we did get a couple questions on how to access those sorts of things. So yeah, no announcement yet on reopening. Hopefully, as long as things continue to get better and vaccinations keep moving on, we'll have something to announce in the future, hopefully. But unfortunately, right now we're still not open for research. And the last question, and I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but somebody asked about two specific questions, and they said it looks like they may not be in our catalog. They collection 680 and 750. I'm not sure what those are, but could you talk a little bit about are there collections at HSP that are not in Discover, and if so, is there any way to access them once HSP is open?
So what's in Discover is all of our collection level records. You're not going to find individual items in a record like letters. Well, sometimes you will, but really you shouldn't find individual letters. So really, what we do for this section is kind of give you a collection level. So a collection actually could be one thing. I mean, it could be a diary. It could be a letter. That just means that that's the only piece of the collection that we got during the accession. So generally what you're going to find in here is a collection level. It's just going to give you a collection number. and it's going to give you usually a summary of what the collection consists of. Okay. What you really want to use if you're looking for specific things is the card catalog and family search. Those are what have specific items that are housed in all these varying collections. Okay. So you're going to find letters that are in the Gratz collection in there. You're going to find the letters that are in the Cadwallader collection. You name it. All right. So this is good to get an idea of like, you know what, I need to see, I need to take a look at the inventory if there is one for, let's go to the Penn family papers. Okay. All right. So Penn family papers, widely used collection at HSP. This one actually has a linked finding aid, but when you click on the record, I mean, you're really only going to get a description of it. It's going to tell you how big it is, how many boxes, how many volumes, whether it's open for research use. There's no restrictions. And then, of course, you can see the summary. All right. But this one actually has a finding aid link to it. So you can actually click on the hyperlink and it's going to take you to the finding aid. And in the finding aid, you're going to find, the abstract, biographical, historical note. All right. Some of them are more detailed than others. The scope and content note. This basically breaks down the series of a collection. And then you can see that outline here too. And then as you scroll down, you're gonna start to really see what the inventory of each series.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for correspondence between these years, that's the volume for you. And it goes on. It's a huge collection, so there's a lot of stuff in there.
Great.
But that's the best way to do it. I mean, if you're looking just for collection materials, you're gonna want to probably just go to the archival record section and then conduct your search in there.
Great.
That's probably what I would do.
Great. Well, yeah, no, again, I want to thank you, Anthony, for the presentation.
Sure.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And again, I know I did put the links that Anthony had mentioned in the chat, but what I'll do is I'm going to probably tomorrow, I will send out an email to everyone with those links and hours for the chat and some of the other things we talked about tonight, Anthony's email, just so everybody has them. And then once this recording is ready, we'll send a link out to that as well, and we'll post it up on our website in case anyone wants to refer back to it, because it's got a lot of good information in there. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anthony, and everyone have a good evening.
Sure. Thanks again, guys. Thank you for attending.